Well, I guess I started getting involved with bikes when I was a kid, when I was probably about 6 or 7 years old. And after multi-flat tires and stuff like that, my father said, "Here's the wrenches, you fix the flat tires yourself now." And so he started teaching me how to, he's quite a good mechanic himself, and he taught me how to fix flat tires. And so the die was cast then, and I started fixing bikes from then. And then, and I'd go down to our general store here and see all the brand new CCMs. And this was in the early 60s, probably around 61, 62 and stuff like that. And we hadn't got the first wave of the imports, which would have been the British stuff like rallies and stuff like that much then. And so everybody was, the bicycle of choice in the period was CCM. The first time I saw one of these was one of my neighbors across the street had a 62 CCM Mark II, very similar to this, and it was in green. And I was still riding around on a maroon coaster brake CCM 24-inch, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on something like this. So I'd go down to the local store here, the general store, like a lot of kids would have done in the day. And these were, a lot of the times they didn't sell bicycles in bicycle shops. They'd be in hardware stores. And so you'd go down, they'd have maybe 5 or 6 bikes on display. They wouldn't have, you'd never see the whole CCM line in one store. And so I saw this blue CCM with white walls, and I just fell in love with it, with the saddle bag and all the white cables and everything. I just thought it was absolutely beautiful and just glistened with the lights shining on it. And so that was the bike I wanted. And so I finally convinced my mother, and she paid the $63 for it, and I had my brand new 63 Imperial. And then years later, you know, I wanted to get back some of the memories of that fantastic gift that my mother had given me. So, and you sort of, I guess as an adult, we retrace our steps sometimes from our childhood. And so I went searching for my 63 Imperial. And in about 20 years of collecting, the closest I could come was this one, which was a 64. This is a 1918 CCM. That it's a work in progress at this stage, and it's also a wooden wheel bike, and I still have to put the crank together on it. This frame has had tubes replaced on it, and it's only a 20-inch frame from here to the seat post, and it's a very low frame. I would use 28-inch wheels. But it could be used as a teenager's bike, and I think it was used as probably for a Gazette boy in 1918. And they would have used this style of frame, and they could have used a basket, a wrought iron basket. They had these baskets in 2 depths. This depth was used for the grocery carriers, and then there was a shallower one that was used just as for a regular pedestrian model. You had to be an insider to know how good CCMs were, because you had to understand that CCM used all caged bearings as opposed to loose bearings that the rallies would have used. Like a rally in the steering head was like about 40 little tiny loose ball bearings, and and when you take the steering apart, you had to put all these little tiny bearings in grease and to get them together, and one would fall out and it would get contaminated with dirt on the floor, and you have to clean it and put it back in and stuff like that. Whereas on the CCM, it's just a race. Put some grease on it, throw the thing back together, it's together, it's done. You know, and it was the same with the crank. You know, you could take that. I could take that crank apart in about 5 minutes, and it'd be off in my hands. And same with the forks.
And they never really capitalized on their status.
No.
As Canada's.
No, they could have done, you know. But so many people were thinking that everybody else made a better bike than we did. They thought the Rally was it was more prestigious. Rally would have, they capitalized on their prestige. Well, of course, the badge for a Rally said "The Rally, Nottingham, England" on it, and so it was a very prestigious crest. You know, whereas CCM should have kept on with that. But Canada was typical of that. Like, I worked for the Hudson's Bay Company, and what do? They shortened the name to the Bay. Why didn't they shorten it to Hudson's? And the name that the company was named after. At the time when they shortened the name to the Bay, I said, well, why didn't they go all the way and just shorten it to the? Then we get into another variation on the 3-speed over here. This represents the 60s, just about as much as the Beatles did. This was a Mustang bike, and we would have done wheelies on this, and it had a little stick shift on it, and the banana seat. This one is a girl's model, which is probably why it's in such good shape. This was I bought this bike brand new about 5 years ago. It was what we refer to as an NOS, new old stock, and I bought it. It was still in the box, and most of the men's bikes would have all been ruined because we had the reputation for being fairly tough on the bikes, you know. Unless you knew how to repair them, most of them would have been destroyed at the time, and they had short little pedal arms, which meant that you weren't going to go long distances on them. So you were just zooming around town, looking cool, and doing wheelies and stuff like that. I got to the point where I could do a second gear wheelie in one of these all day long. It was quite easy. You know, it was a lot of fun. They do, and they even have. I think they even have a warning. I think on the handlebar here, there's a little tag that talks about a warning about a safety warning and stuff like that. Because that's why they stopped producing these, because I think a lot of people, they wouldn't have produced these today because they're unsafe by today's standards. Because you'd land on the stick shift and you could hurt yourself there, or you'd go flipping over doing a wheelie, and so they weren't really that practical. But they were fun. And that was bicycling was all about in those days. This is a 1927 Cleveland with a 2-talent bell. And these handle grips are leather. They're leather handle grips. These are also, I think they're cork with leather over them. And they have a little chrome strip here. They're very period style handle grips. This one is also a wooden wheel bike. Cleveland was another rebadged CCM at the time. I'm not sure if it's actually a lower or higher level than a CCM. I think it would probably be lower level. And the steering stem was slightly different. Had the lock bolt behind the handlebars as opposed to the usual type that would be in front. But it was quite a neat bike. The sentimentality of this bike is because my father had a 1927 Cleveland motorcycle, and so it was kind of neat to get a Cleveland bicycle, which was about as close as I could get to what my father would have had.